Quiet on set.
I'm your host, Marlo Lemon, and you're listening to Wild Voice, the self-help podcast that guides you through life one spiritual tool at a time.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Give me more. Can't be.
If you ever see me stop and just stare, past you, up at the sky, or deep into the ocean, I'm probably reflecting, processing, grasping this human experience that oscillates between making a whole lot of sense and none at all. I refuse to live in a world where our stories are all perfect. And I refuse to live in a world where our stories are all pain. I know it's not easy to take full ownership of our life in a world where everyone is playing the blame game. But if I can close a chapter with wholeness and love without having to point a finger at who was right or who was wrong, or without waiting for an apology, you can too. A couple months ago, I thought to reach out to my parents about a small safe I had gotten when Nash and I lived with them right after Bob died. I felt like there were a lot of things during that time that felt very adult, like creating a will, increasing my life insurance, and getting a safe for some valuables. I was in this stage back then of how do I protect what I do physically have left of Bob for Nash. I found a safe at Target, I think. Shout out to Target. I spent a lot of time there during that time of life, also rebuying things that didn't have memories attached to them, like pots and pans, or bedding, towels, clothes for Nash. And we all know we can go into Target with not needing a single thing and come out with 10 bags and $500 less, if we're lucky, in our bank account. When I got this safe, it was heavy, and I lived in my parents' apartment above their garage at the top of a flight of stairs. So this safe sat at the bottom of the stairs for a good week, accumulating odds and ends. For anyone who has a flight of stairs in their house, it's a catch-all for whatever needs to be taken upstairs, or a good holding spot for things you are taking downstairs, or outside, or possibly laundry. So, once I got my dad's attention, he helped me carry it upstairs and unboxed it. He knows his way around a safe. He has a lot of them, and I just stood there confused. But in that chapter of life, the one I'm rolling up my sleeves and learning new things daily at that point, literally actually minute by minute. So I was prepared. I was prepared to start something I had no idea what I was doing. So I sat down next to him as he read the instructions out loud on how to open this thing and get it set up with the code. I was having major flashbacks to locker combination days in high school, except this was even more complicated. So, needless to say, I was glad one of us knew what was going on. Once he got it opened, he asked me what I wanted to put in there, and I went into one of the bedroom closets and grabbed out a box. It had Bob's ashes in it, his wallet, keys, whatever was in his pockets and on him that night he died, which included the rosary he had in his hand when I found him. The box also had our wedding rings in it and a printout of the emailed letter Bob emailed to me minutes before he died, and the letter I wrote to him that Par read for me at his service. These were things that I wanted Nash to have regardless of what outside elements might impact my ability to keep them in one place or safe from any natural disaster. When I walked over to my dad and put the box down and sat next to him on the floor in front of the open safe, we both just looked at the items quietly but confidently. An element of connection but with no words as I put them into the safe one by one. The whole reason I have Bob's ashes in a safe is because at the time that this all happened, it felt so emotionally charged and Nash was so young. I didn't want to make a decision on what to do with Bob's ashes if I didn't have a strong opinion about it in the moment. I wanted to save them for Nash, for a time that he could decide what he wanted to do with them. I had moments like that and have since all of this where I just stop and reflect. It's always internal and always quiet. I tend to get wide-eyed at life and how surprised I am at times that this is my life. I finished putting the last thing in the safe and my dad showed me how to lock it and close it. I looked at him and said, "There is no way I'm remembering all of that." And I laughed. He smiled and laughed back and said, "Well, that's what I'm here for." He got up and left the apartment. So much life has happened from that moment to now, and I know I've shared a lot, but with my moves out of the apartment to Lake Oswego, then back into the apartment before we moved out of town to the coast a couple hours away, that safe stayed at my parents'. It was in a back closet behind another closet way back in storage. They remodeled the apartment since then, built other things on their property, and that safe would pop into my mind every once in a while, hoping it wasn't getting lost in the shuffle. But when I'd go to look for it, I couldn't find it. And it wasn't uncommon for things to get misplaced around there. But a safe? Really? I knew it had to be somewhere. But each time I'd start to look for it, I'd get distracted or would be going to bed or something would keep me from asking much about it. It also wasn't something I was really needing, but over the last year, I started to think about it more and more, until one day, a few months ago, I thought to ask my parents via text to see if they could help me find it. I didn't even know if they remembered it was still there. So on a group text to my mom and dad, I asked about it, and I knew it would be something that could bring stress or worry for the fact they knew it was important. And I know with everything they keep track of in their own life, I doubted they had any clue where it was. At the time I asked, they happened to be out of town, and within minutes they both responded, mentioning that they would check with the amazing house help, which is like family to all of us, to see if they knew where it was. So of course, the SOS text messages went out with, "We need to find the safe with Bobby in it." And my family and the people that support and help us, I don't think they even batted an eye. Another 20 minutes goes by, and 3 people were looking in different storage units and places it could be, and I got a picture from the groundskeeper, Luis, of the safe that he had found. He brought it down to the garage so it would be easier for me to get the next time I was in town. With my million thank yous and thank you emojis to send along to Luis for the fact that he found a needle in a haystack, I was looking forward to the next time I would go to my parents' house, check out this safe, and get it back in our everyday home space. I hadn't seen this safe in so long, besides knowing roughly the size, I couldn't recall what it looked like. So when I was in town next, I went into the garage and I tried to open it. I was in the garage fussing with it when my mom came out to see what I was doing. When she saw that I was struggling more than I was getting any further with opening it, she called for my dad, which meant Nash was also trailing not too far behind. I read off the code while my dad got down on the floor in front of that safe and helped me open it again. I didn't think it had been opened since that day we put things in it together. As he was spinning the knob, my mom said, "He has a magic touch when it comes to safes." I laughed for the reason that it was a funny compliment to give. I don't know what that meant, but especially since she doesn't give out compliments easily. But she was right, because the safe popped open shortly after that. Nash at this point had asked all the questions about what the safe was for and what was in it. When I told him as my dad was opening it, he hovered over my shoulder, eager to see what was in it. I laughed a bit because I felt like it was like a dad in a box, like we were going to add water to it and something would appear. I think Nash thought so too. As Nash and I opened it together, he squealed, "It smells old in there." And he was right. It had a musty smell, and I had forgotten all the things that were in it. We started pulling things out one by one, and Bob's ashes were first. Then a baggie of random loose items like his watch, keys, and wallet. Nash was grabbing things and checking them out, and I quickly saw the letter from Bob. Knowing Nash can clearly read now, and very well, I scooped up the letter quickly and just glanced at it, forgetting it was even in there. The letter Bob emailed me was mainly a letter written to Nash, and the last few sentences were directed to me and his mom and his brother and the rest of my family. Luckily, Nash had enough to distract him that he didn't even notice I took anything out of the box. I felt like this rush of energy come out of this box when we opened it, and I just felt a little taken back. I wasn't expecting to feel any sort of way. I've moved through these stages and then some. Even Nash can look through these things with a matter-of-fact intention about it. So why was I feeling off my game a bit? Nash asked if we were going to take it home, and I said it totally was going home with us. It felt right to have all of our things in one spot. We loaded it into the car, and the drive back home, I was thinking a lot about it. How surprised I was at how I had any sort of feelings about it, ones I wasn't expecting. It's like all the memories came flooding back once I opened that safe. I couldn't tell if that's how I truly felt, or if my human self was taken back that this was something we had lived through. It was strange, but it got me thinking. That night, once we got back home and put the safe in the garage, I wanted to read that letter again that Bob sent, and I had it in my emails still. So I searched for it and came across a handful of other emails Bob and I had sent to each other over the years. Ones about appointments we were scheduling, house things, wedding planning, just saying hi emails during the workday, and they made me smile. Then I found the most recent one, which was the last one, his version of a goodbye letter. I read it a few times over, and it hit different this time. I felt frustrated by it. This was a letter to Nash, mainly giving advice and wisdom, and it was off. It felt empty and lost, and at times where I felt so glad to have that for Nash, I now was frustrated that one day I was going to have to show this to him, and I was going to have to decode and explain why his advice isn't advice to live by. A time where I thought there were some glimmers of truth and wisdom now fell flat, and I felt it was more harmful than good. I mean, how good can someone's wisdom be? An hour before they take their own life. I had a few tears in my eyes as I read it, more for the awe of life, and where I'm at, and compassion for where I was, where Nash was, and even for Bob, and the life he internally lived while he was here. I went to bed that night a little busy in my thoughts, but went to sleep easily. I had a dream that night, and Bob was in it. Since Bob died, I can say dreams with him in it are very rare. I get other ways and moments where I can connect with him, but dreams are not it. So when I have them with him in it, they are potent. And I think they have only happened like 4 times since he's died. My dream that night, I was in a car, like a suburban type car, and I was in the middle row of seats and Nash was in the way back. And outside the window, I saw Bob going past our window in the opposite direction. Dreams are weird, but if I could explain the vibe, it seemed like he was riding a bike. But I only could see the top of his head. But I could hear his thoughts and he could hear mine, and no one else saw him but me. There was more to the dream, and the overall feeling wasn't scary, but it was heavy, like he was trying to show me something but needed me to follow him. I woke up abruptly to find it was pitch black and in the middle of the night. I could feel and see the dream so vividly, and Bob was at the forefront. You know those dreams that you have when you wake up and it feels like real life, like it really has happened? I woke up feeling that way. I instantly remembered his ashes were in the garage, in that safe. I started to panic. I started to visualize that moment I found him, and as I squinted my eyes, I kept feeling like I saw him standing in the doorway. Now, this story might feel intense, but this and a lot of other experiences I've had myself at night is the reason why I have so much compassion for Nash, or any person or child for that matter, that has dreams at night that wake them up just feeling scared or unsettled, eerie, not able to go back to sleep. It's not a tactic, it's not their imagination or eyes playing tricks on them, but it can take on a mind of its own with our busy minds to give it fuel. So our brain can take us on a wild ride until we know what to do to calm it all down, reground ourselves, and protect and clear the energy and the vibes that don't feel great. So I could feel my mind taking me on a ride. I could feel my body starting to relive that moment and being very unsettled that Bob was in the garage. Fire is powerful and disintegrates whatever is in its path. That's why when you might do a journal exercise or write some things down that you want to let go of and release, it's very freeing and liberating to burn it because it engulfs the tangible thing and it disappears before our eyes. The same is true when someone gets cremated. We put a lot of emphasis on the person being that pile of ashes because technically, yes, it is. But we probably can all agree a body isn't what makes up a person we love or miss. It's their insides, their soul, their energy, what animates the physical thing they present themselves with. So the second Bob died, I found other ways to feel him, to see him, and know he was around. Ashes and sentimental physical things have their place, but they lost power in my eyes because I could feel Bob more in nature or staring into the ocean or hearing Nash's giggle more than holding or looking at ashes ever made me feel. So I was very surprised I was giving these ashes and these sentimental physical items so much power. I even had a moment where I was considering crawling into bed with Nash that night. I knew that felt like a last resort, and I needed to try the things I know I can do to feel settled and rebalanced. I also knew whether I was going to go into Nash's room or not, I didn't want to bring that panicky energy into his space. So as I felt my heart start to race and my powerful mind start to replay and create new things, because my initial healing has been done, I have tools and ways to access my abilities and gifts in those hard moments. So I did just that. I was able to see what was happening, and with enough integration and practice with this energy work, I got started. One of the things I did was slow my breathing down with one hand on my heart and another on my stomach, and reminded myself I am safe and this is not going to kill me. I also tapped into that intuition of mine to really help me get clear on what I was actually navigating and being presented with in that moment. And once I could get my physical self grounded and calm, I could actually see the moment for what it was and tackle it from there. The next morning when I woke up, I had this heavy feeling that bringing that safe into our home was a bad idea. Kind of like I brought that part of our life that isn't a part of us anymore to this stage of life, that we don't need to walk into the garage every day and be reminded of. But I also know it was a beautiful moment and gift that has come from all of that. I was torn because Nash seemed to like it there, but by like it, I think he was curious about it. But that faded, and each day that passed, I wondered where it should go. It didn't feel right in the garage, not in the house, not back at my parents', so I just let it sit. But I felt scared. I felt scared that this bothered me. I felt upset this had power over me like it did. And as more time passed, weeks, I started to not notice it as much. I would work out in our garage, and I would just laugh to myself that I was in the garage working out with Bob, which he did not like to do at all. Or Nash would come out and talk to me, and we'd just use it like a table. We'd put our waters on it. I think a soccer ball hit it a couple times. There was a part of me that felt settled by its presence after a bit, kind of like he was here physically in some way. And when I would navigate a tough day or thing, there was something I was feeling uneasy about, I would feel oddly a little bit more settled looking over at the safe. I always felt in our relationship that he had my back. Very interesting, given how things ended and what came to light. But I felt like he was my person, like my ride or die. I felt it. And although it wasn't that full picture at the end of the day, it was a piece of it, and those feelings were very real and genuine. From this place, I felt like I could decide what to do with this lovely safe, because I felt neutral about it. Was it best in our garage, or was it best somewhere else? My life intention and aligned actions feels best when I'm buoyant and organized. So I tend to go through my closet, nashes, garage bins, storage items often, and downsize. I like that feeling of just really holding on to what I really find important. Now, don't get it twisted. That could mean the snow cone machine stays and the fourth fuzzy blanket goes. Also the million bins of Halloween decorations and Christmas. It just depends on what intuitively feels right to me and what represents more than what's on the surface. I have been wrestling with the idea of this safe, and now even longer than that, this beautifully eclectic pink china set my parents bought for Bob and I for our wedding gift. I always thought that tradition was weird, and I'm not into fancy, but I've held on to this china and I was almost about to sell it. I figured the cash was going to be more valuable than something I would never use. So a couple months ago, I went through our extended storage items, bins of baking supplies from when I had my baking business before Nash was born, keepsakes, photo albums, some of Bob's things from our life together, things from my childhood and his, my old cheerleading uniform, and just mementos from special moments in life. Also, furniture from the house Nash and I lived in before we moved to the coast, and this china set was something that kept getting pulled to the side for me to figure out what to do with it. A couple weeks ago, I thought more about it. I opened it, looked through it, and although Bob and I never used it, it obviously was a gift from the day we got married, the day I made it official with the person I would have Nash with. I see that as a beautiful thing, and I actually liked the china. Minus the baby pink hue of every piece in it, I envisioned it in another house, in the future. So I wanted to keep it. It felt right to have that and the safe out of our home, though, and in its own space. A place with intention we could go to instead of just having it mixed in with everything else. So I decided to get a storage unit close to my parents' house, and that these two things would go in it first. And also, if life ever changes, I have a spot with some of our things in it. I've lived life where I was completely unprepared for life to shift. And part of the beauty in that lesson is that will never happen again. From a place of growth and learning life lessons. So without much plan, the empty storage unit, already open and ready for us and paid for, Nash and I made a day adventure to Portland to possibly pumpkin patch, run a few errands, and take the safe and the china set to the storage unit. I didn't say much to Nash about the storage plan, but as we walked into our garage to load up and leave, I told him the addition to our Portland adventure and why I felt that this was a good move. And I asked what he thought. He said, "Whatever you want, Mom." I smiled and said, "Cool. Will you help me move the safe? I think we're strong enough to figure this out and do it together." He smirked at me and said, "I do too." I told him maybe we should record it. It's a powerful moment to reflect on, and maybe other people would find it helpful too. Being a more of a moment-to-moment person, I don't record much. But trying to get on the bandwagon of sharing more with all of you amongst the little moments, I had Nash brainstorm with me a way to keep my phone propped up in the garage while we figured out how to get this small but heavy safe out of the garage. I laughed to myself knowing here we were carrying Bob together, and what a funny ride life is. It was a surreal moment and also one that felt empowering. Empowering in a way, knowing we can get through anything. As we loaded it into the car and made our way to Portland, Nash fell asleep on the drive over. So with Nash still sleeping, I pulled into our storage facility, found our unit, pulled up the accordion door to see where this safe and wedding china was going to live. It felt right, it felt freeing, and it felt clear. I started loading the things into the unit and just stared for a minute. I felt like I was leaving Bob behind and wanted something more comforting for that moment. So I went back to my car to see if I had any crystals, and I had one in my center console, and then remembered I have a little red leather pouch that I keep a bunch of small crystals in that are in my bag every day. I realized I had already done most of the work, but thought maybe this is one of those times to show you guys and document this part too. I grabbed the crystals and set up the phone and pulled a couple out and placed them on top of the safe. Made sure everything was in its place and closed the pull-down door behind me and locked it up. I can only explain that feeling in that moment as raw, whole, and everything and everyone right where they are supposed to be. You know that settled feeling? I created a little quick video from that day with some words that came to mind when I watched it back and posted it on Instagram. I noticed in that moment that just because this big life shift happened 7 years ago, it still holds so much beauty and is a big part of how I live my life today. I used to think back in the day that healing meant that moment or experience we are healing through doesn't impact us anymore. I think it's much more nuanced than that. I think if those reflection moments bring wholeness to our life, even if they aren't made up of unicorns and rainbows and smiles and laughter, that actually, maybe being able to reflect on tough moments with presence and completeness and gratitude and move through them is the true unicorn and rainbows vibe we all allude to. Maybe it's in these moments we are actually living how we are meant to. Because I can tell you, in that moment, I felt so much wholeness that I've witnessed many times on this journey to spiritual as fuck. And I would take that feeling over and over again, opposed to perfection. In those moments, I feel the deep meaning of life and what it truly feels like to be alive. I think perfect lives amongst the little moments that are probably opposite to what we have been taught to believe what perfection is. I go back and forth for a way to describe this feeling, like perfectly imperfect, or perfect for me. Or maybe it's just perception, and we can live that feeling in any given moment. So maybe it's better described as seeing life is always working for us, even in the darkest moments. I've mentioned before to look for the helpers in times of darkness or heaviness or pain or struggle. And I used to mean that as physical people, where the intensity in pain is balanced by the same intensity in someone supporting you, guiding you, helping you. Choosing to look for more beauty than pain is part of navigating through the eye of the storm. With time, that look for the helpers saying has taken on more of a robust meaning. I've realized with integration, it also means to look for the helpers amongst life's intricacies, within our thoughts, experiences, perceptions, how it can be decoded as help, especially the things that don't feel good. How can we see hardship as a helper, to get to the next moment, or see it as the shining light on the thing that needs our attention? We have been raised to believe that pain means bad, struggle means not helpful, happiness means the true purpose in life. Again, way too nuanced to say that this is all true or all false. So instead, remind yourself each passing moment is presented to us for a chance to upgrade life. I prefer to see life this way and love how it feels much more than the moments I think life is working against me, or like I'm missing out on something that everyone else gets access to but me. I have these moments, believe me, and I hate the feeling, especially when I pull through the fog and see what it could feel like the other way. It's a time waste, life suck, soul dampening way, and I will choose the other all day long. But don't take it from me. We have the free will to choose, feel, and do whatever we want. So you decide which fork in the road you want to take and try it both ways. You'll probably have to really feel into it and know what I'm talking about. I had to. And when you know, you'll know. I leave you with this, an added bonus to get all of this to really sink in. Remember the common denominator amongst all of this. Your life, your story, your experiences. The one who shows up every time no matter what is you. And this life is better with you in it, even if you were tripping, falling, and clumsily stumbling through it. I don't want anyone to be perfect, because that means I need to be, and I don't have time for that. So consider today's episode to be a reminder, to tell the people in your life you love them, and that should probably start with who you see in the mirror.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
Okay, just because this episode's over doesn't mean our time together has to be. Find me at marlolemon.com and on Instagram at marlo.lemon. Check the show notes for other ways for us to stay connected. And one more thing, if you found this episode helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it on social, review it, tell a friend. The more of us who become soul-aligned, the more beautiful, harmonious, and fulfilling this world becomes. We're in this wild ride of life together. Okay, that's all. I'm your host, Marlo Lemon, and you've been listening to Wild Voice. Okay, I think we got it.